One of the humanitarian concerns that no one seems able to come to grips with is the very definite possibility that a large portion of the population of Africa could be wiped out by AIDS. But while that possibility has caught the attention of the world, another equally frightening disease, sleeping sickness, has virtually gone unnoticed, except by the American doctor you're about to meet. For the last 7 years, Dr. Mickey Richer, a pediatrician from Colorado, has been fighting a lonely battle in one of the most remote corners of Africa to try to stop a terrifying and painful disease from decimating this war-torn province of southern Sudan.
So these children all know what's going to happen today?
Yes, they come for a test.
For the test?
Yes.
Okay.
Today, Dr. Richer and her team from the International Medical Corps are trying to put up a firewall against a disease called sleeping sickness. It's spread by the bite of a tsetse fly, and 40 years ago it was almost totally wiped out. But now, because of decades of civil war and neglect, a frightful epidemic has re-emerged, threatening millions of people. In some parts of Africa, the disease is killing as many people as AIDS. The difference is there is a cure for sleeping sickness.
It is a disease that's 100% fatal if not treated. It's a disease that's almost 100% curable if treated. So that's a dichotomy, huh? A fatal disease, and yet we have a cure for it, so why aren't we trying to cure the people that have it? Because we don't have the resources.
Do they know what's going on? I mean, are they aware of this sleeping sickness?
Oh yes, very much so. Most of the kids here have had at least one family member die of sleeping sickness, a mother, a father.
Angelo John!
No one wants to hear his or her name called today because it means their blood shows the first signs of the disease. Those infected with the deadly parasite are taken to Dr. Richer's remote field hospital, where there's no power, no running water, and just old-fashioned cures. The only thing not in short supply are patients, and many of them have had to walk for days just to get here, including children slipping into a deep sleep from which they may never awake.
So this is our first patient, John. A little 12-year-old.
How bad is John?
Well, now he's relapsed and he has got trypanosome, so we have found the parasite in the fluid that surrounds his brain.
And that means what for how he's going to progress now?
That means he's got a very advanced disease. He's very, very sleepy. He sleeps all the day. He's having a lot of difficulty with walking. He's not talking normally. He's a little bit confused.
He really is falling asleep.
Yeah, he will fall asleep right here if we let him.
And in a worst-case scenario, how long does he have to live?
Well, if we don't treat him at all, it's 100% fatal. So if we don't treat him, he will die.
The main drug that's used to treat the advanced form of sleeping sickness is an antiquated old substance that was first developed 50 years ago. It's called Milasoprol, and it's made up of arsenic mixed with the compound that goes into making antifreeze for cars. It actually kills about 5% of the people who use it, and the patients who do survive the injections say that it feels like hot chili peppers coursing through their veins.
You will see adult men here crying once it's being injected in their vein. I mean, and we're talking stoic populations.
This drug is so painful, and it can kill a huge number of the patients. Mm-hmm. In the West, in the United States, would a vet even give this drug to a dog?
Probably not. There are better drugs to treat animals than there are humans.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. And yes, veterinarians have put the money into research, so the drugs that are used in animal trypanosomiasis are actually somewhat better than the ones that are used in human trypanosomiasis.
That's the scientific name for sleeping sickness. I noticed that the doctors, they don't prepare a whole load of syringes. Why not?
Right. The syringes we use here are plastic, and so the drug is so caustic, the preservative is so caustic, it causes the plastic of the syringe to melt.
If it causes a hard plastic syringe to melt, what does it do to somebody's vein?
Well, it destroys the vein. Most of the time the vein can't be used again.
And what that means is that each shot is more of an ordeal, especially for children like Zaina, as well as the doctors who struggle to find enough healthy veins to last the 10-day course of painful injections.
I know you're a pediatrician and you've dealt with children all your life and you've used to hearing kids scream on injections, but this is different. This isn't just a needle stick. This is like burning their bodies.
Yeah. And just like Enya saying, "Mommy, Mommy, why are you hurting me?" I mean, you know, that's kind of heart-wrenching.
This Melarsoprol is just so bad. How do you justify using it even?
We use it because otherwise people would die. So even though you might die from the drug 5 to 10% of the time, you would die from this disease 100% of the time. So your chances, it's like Russian roulette. What do you want?
It doesn't have to be this way. In fact, scientists in the United States and Europe already have found a far less painful way to cure sleeping sickness. Only the people here will probably never see it, because for the drug companies, it's just not profitable. You can't make money making medicines for people who earn less than $1 a day.
He's definitely reacting to the combination medicine.
The drug is called DFMO. It cures sleeping sickness without toxic side effects. Dr. Richer took us to this old warehouse, which has the only local stock of DFMO. It was left behind by another group of aid workers who fled the fighting here 10 years ago.
Just be careful, there's a lot of broken glass, huh?
DFMO was meant to cure cancer and make a fortune for the pharmaceutical company. But it failed as a cancer drug, and so even though it did cure sleeping sickness, production was stopped. And now, the DFMO lying around here is expired and useless.
This is a vial of DFMO.
So this is the miracle drug that could actually be used.
Right. We don't use this because it's outdated, but this is the very same thing.
And even though this is successful on advanced stage sleeping sickness, the company's not making it anymore.
Right. The company no longer makes it. The process, the chemical process to make it is very complicated, and it does destroy machinery, so it's very expensive.
At $600 a patient, DFMO is just too expensive for the sleeping sickness victims here in Africa. But DFMO will be available in another formulation for consumers in the West.
Would you dare let someone get this close?
It turns out the drug helps remove facial hair. And this commercial is part of a campaign to launch a new hair removal cream for women. It's made by Bristol Myers Squibb.
Now, up close is up to you.
If an existing drug is going to be used and produced and sold at a very high return on investment for a lifestyle disease, and it's not available for a disease that threatens the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, I don't know any other word to describe that situation than obscene.
James Orbinski from Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, is trying to force the pharmaceutical industry to pay attention to what he calls the neglected diseases of the Third World.
How do you convince that multi-billion-dollar empire to devote a tiny, tiny percentage to these medicines that can cure these diseases?
Well, you can ask. And the answer that you will likely get is that the pharmaceutical industry is not a social service. The pharmaceutical industry is a business, and they will behave as any business does. It will seek to maximize its profit. Now, they certainly don't want to be seen as anti-humanitarian. And so we've seen, piecemeal sort of efforts like drug donation programs and price reductions and things of that sort. But in reality, what they actually achieve in the developing world is very, very little.
Aventis, the company that originally developed DFMO, did give the formula to the World Health Organization before the stocks ran out. But it hasn't been easy to find a high-quality manufacturer who's willing to make the drug. Harvey Bale, a spokesman for pharmaceutical companies, defended the industry's efforts.
I think we have a very serious problem today. The bulk of the pharmaceutical industry is in the so-called North part of the world, and the problems of disease, of infectious diseases, are in the South. And many of the people in the South simply do not have the means to buy these medicines. So where do they turn? They turn to the pharmaceutical industry and say, please, you solve the problem of access. Because we're a lot easier to attack than their own governments, which simply tend to shove them off and tell them to go away.
But you're the ones who actually produce or could produce the life-saving drugs.
We are the ones who do produce the life-saving drugs.
But not for all these diseases and not in affordable quantities.
And we recognize that, and I think the industry is working on that. But the problem is, again, the poor of the world, the third world, is looking to the pharmaceutical industry not only to discover and produce the new drugs, but to somehow give them away and say that the responsibility of governments should be forgotten and it should all rest on the pharmaceutical industry.
Harvey Bale, who represents the pharmaceutical industry, basically says, hang on a second, we're not a charitable organization. Why do you expect us to donate our expertise or our drugs?
Medicines are not CDs. You know, medicines are not, Gucci purses or whatever, Gucci watches. Medicines are life-saving entities. It's not for Africans to justify their existence. They're human beings.
At the end of our stay with Dr. Richer, another young woman was carried into the hospital deep in a sleeping sickness coma. If Dr. Richer had some DFMO, she told us she could probably save her life.
Today is not such a good day. It's a bad day. The fact that we had a relapse kid come in, that if we had the appropriate medicine for her, I could treat her. So it makes you feel kind of depressed and sad today. Usually we're pretty upbeat here, but just a little down today.
Since we left Dr. Richer's hospital in southern Sudan, her funds have run out and she'll soon be unable to treat any more patients. But after intense pressure from international aid agencies and the media, the drug companies concerned are planning to announce that they'll donate a 3-year supply of DFMO. However, the group Doctors Without Borders says there is still no long-term commitment to producing what's known as the miracle cure for sleeping sickness.